Hello everyone, and welcome to our third episode. In the past two episodes, we've shown you how to install our play controller Steve and give him some weapons and do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But today I wanted to show you our quick coloring shader for quick prototyping on custom models in case you don't want to use big asset packs or anything. So let's dive straight in. So what I have here is a big scene of grayed out objects. I'm just going to show you around some shaders that we already have. I have this white-green one for like a plate with veggies, and basically I can use any of these shaders on all these objects because the objects are unwrapped easily, quickly, in such a way that the shader can interact with them. So basically how it works is that I've made it so that the x0 value and the x1 value are each individually mapped to two colors. I'll explain more about that in a bit. But basically, yeah, so the shader has glossiness and smoothness and metallic variables, and I can change any of these colors. So this is the top color of the first color, and I can do the bottom, and I can make a gradient that way. And basically that works for any of these materials, so I can use these, and yeah, you can basically make any model and unwrap them quickly so that they will work with any shader. So let's dive into Blender. I'm going to show you a bit how to set up such a model. I'm just going to make a new scene so you know I'm starting from scratch, deleting the lights and the camera, and make sure I'm in the front view, so that's the empty green little bulb. So you can tell that it's from the front orthographic. So let me just delete the lights and the camera. We don't need those. And I think I'm just gonna make a chair. We already have a chair in the scene, but you know, it's good for reference, and I can show you some little tricks for modeling also. So I'm just gonna make sure the pivot is at the bottom. So whenever we drag our object onto the Unity scene, it's going to slide across the pivot on the bottom. I'm just going to make some sections here with the loop cut to make sure I can extrude some stool-like situation. So I'm just holding Control to snap that down. It's nice and even with the grid. It doesn't necessarily have to be, of course, but it's just easy. Extrude the back, there we go. And I think just for the heck of it, I'm gonna make like a padding for the bottom and the back. So I'm just gonna extrude a section there, do an inset, and then pull that up. So I'm pressing G and then Z to move it up vertically. And then the back, of course, do the same thing. Just gonna make an inset there because it doesn't need to be the entire. Make sure there's a gap between the bottom seat and the back padding. Inset and then extrude and another inset and pull that across the Y to the front. Okay. So I'm just gonna do a quick little trick. So this would already work, but I kind of want to make it a little smoother, stylized, like I have the chair in the scene. So I'm just gonna make sure all the faces are smoothed, and then head over to that's one of the properties there here, and then go to normals, enable that, and auto smooth. Yeah, make sure that's set to some degree that I'll like. Okay. Just gonna add one more thing in editing mode. I'm gonna while I tweak a little bit with the settings here, but I'm just gonna select the edges and then force it to be sharp edges. I don't think it'll matter much for this particular model, but it's good practice that whenever you want to use this technique and you want to sort of you know, when you're smoothing out things based on a degree, you might have some smoothing that you don't want, but then you can select the edges and then mark them as sharp edges so that you can force them to be sharp that way. Just neat little trick whenever you're doing stylized things like this. So it's very low poly, but it has very like assigned, smoothed out segments. Now this could be, of course, any model that you're making for your prototyping project. Right. Okay. So that looks good to me. I'm just gonna head over to the UV. What it's all about, because of course we want to make the material work with our model. So I'm just gonna make sure I am. Let me just see. I want to. I think I'm gonna divide the chair into two segments. So that will be the chair base itself and also the padding of the chair. So I'm just gonna make sure I select all the faces of the padding. So the soft pillow on the bottom and the back. There. Just make sure that's it's all selected. Yep. Okay. Now the back. Make sure you select all the faces. And it's going to be very easy to swap, because if I'm going to use two gradients basically, so two, well, main segments, so only the padding and the back, it's going to be very easy to do the other bit in a bit. But yeah, I got all the padding. So yeah, so let's make sure we map our segments correctly. So I'm just going to select everything on the UV screen. Go to front orthographic, so the empty green bulb, and then make sure I do project from view bound, so you get that entire height of your selection on the UV screen. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to use this entire selection and put it across the x0 or x1. I think I'm going to do x1 because the padding is sort of like a secondary color on the chair. So I'm going to hit S to scale, and then S X, scale across the horizontal axis, and then hit 0 basically. So it's flattened out, and we basically have like a height, or like a line of height, I guess, which we're going to map to the right. So I just hit G to move X across the x-axis, 0.5 to make it move to the right by 0.5. It was in the middle, so it was already at 0.5, so another 0.5 makes it 1. So we're just going to invert the selection to get all the rest of the chair. So the base of the chair, go to front orthographic again, and project, bounce, and there we go, we got all the rest of the chair. So we're basically going to repeat the same. Hit S to scale, X, horizontal axis 0, make it flat, and then G to move X across the horizontal axis, and then minus 0.5, because it's starting from the middle, so minus 0.5 puts it at 0. So it's on the left, and that's going to correspond to the left and right side of our gradient. Alright, so that looks good to me. It should be ready. We're just going to name that file, or name the object in the file. Example chair. Okay. Seems good to go. So we export FBX, and you're going to want to make sure you enable, let me just find the folder. Yeah, enable the, if you want to use the information on the transform tab, you basically going to want to make sure you enable the transforms. So all of the information above here on this tab will be used. So it should be good by default if you have your object facing toward the empty green dot. So that should be the front. And yeah, basically the scale is going to be 1 to the grid. So one square will be 1 unit. So the chair is going to be a little big, but that doesn't really matter because we can change that in Unity. We're just going to keep it simple for now, but if by all means you want to be precise about that, you can tweak along with that with your object. So I'm just going to save this. Okay. Alright, so back to Unity. Let's have a look at the result. So I'm just going to open up the folder, example chair. There you are. So as you can see, yeah, it's sliding across the floor nicely, but it's a tad big. It seems like a 2x2 situation if you grab if you compare it to the normal Unity cube, which we expected because you know, it was for like 2x2 on the Blender grid. So what we can do actually in the import settings, we can scale that to 0.5, and that should be okay. Wait, okay, wait, never mind. It's a little small. That should be just 0.5. So let me just make that 0.5. There we go. Make sure we hit apply. Yeah, that looks more like the other chair. It's more chair-like. All right, so let's just try the material that we have. So you'll see that that one's white and brown, but we can use any material. Let's see, that works fine. That one. So we can basically take any material, any of this shaded material, and then make that work. So I'm just gonna make a new one, duplicate it from that, make sure it's a new one, and there you go. We can basically, yeah, so we can do the top X0 and the base of the X0, and we can do the so this basically corresponds to the left and the right side on the unwrap, and we can use the bottom of that and the top of that to kind of make a gradient from that, and then also change the glossiness to what we want it to be. So now it's like a very metallic or glossy looking chair. All right, so that all works. I'm just going to show you in Blender very quickly. So what you could potentially do is because the gradient is like it has a top and a bottom color, so two colors per gradient that make up the gradient. So what you can do is you can basically select any face or any faces and then move them across how the gradient is positioned. So you can basically expose any color from that point on your mesh. So you can, that way you can sort of expose 4 colors because you have the bottom left, the bottom right, and the tops of the X0 and the X1, so each side. And there we go, quick unwrap, flexible material, quick coloring shader. So yeah, I hope with that said, you can make use of this coloring shader for your prototyping endeavors. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.